All right, welcome back. A couple phone lines open right now, or you can reach me on Twitter at Richie Walsh. Cameron just reached out to me. When will people give up on the Pirates? I think a lot of people have given up on the Pirates. Their attendance is way down right now, and after these 6-game losing streaks and pretty much out of the whole race in the Central Division, I will, and especially because the Steelers are starting soon. The Penguins will be up and running in about a month. The interest will definitely be down with the Pirates. No question about that moving forward, especially if they're streaky like this. If they go up to Williamsport tomorrow, win, and then drop 4 straight to the Dodgers. But, you know, knowing the Pirates, they're going to make it interesting, maybe win tomorrow and then take 3 out of 4 of the Dodgers and tease everyone, get within 2 games of the Cubs, and all of a sudden lose 8 of 10 or something like that. That's a typical Pirates move. All right. Nick wants to know if I'm going to watch the Eclipse on Monday. I'm going to be playing golf on Monday at Green Oaks in the Roman Bistro outing. That's what I'm going to be doing on Monday. Don't know if I'll be watching the Eclipse. I'll take precautions if I am, though. And Adam tweeted me, are Vince Williams, Steven Johnson, Tyler Matkevich all still in the mix for a starting job alongside Shazier? I think it's going to be Shazier, Vince Williams, shake and bake. That's what they call themselves. So they're going to be the 2 starters. Matakevich will be the guy that can go both sides. He's your probably #1 backup. Steven Johnson, I would think, would make the team. So those are going to be your 4 guys. But Shazier, Vince Williams, I would pencil those 2 in as the starters right now. Let's go out to the phone lines. We're going to go out to Bob in Indiana. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, 2 things I want to sort of touch on. One is I called last week before this series started, and I said the Pirates need to take 4 or 6 at least out of the Milwaukee-St. Louis series to even have a chance. Of course, that didn't happen. After Los Angeles comes in, they got 4 with them. I think it's going to be over for them. If they were to take 4, because they do play better against the higher teams, you know, they have everything's in their own hands because they're playing all the teams, you know, head on, so they can still do it. But you know, with the guys they have, I just don't think it's going to happen. And the other comment, I'm not trying to put anyone down, but you know, I watched the Chad Cole interview tonight after the game, and it was very painful to watch. You know. I mean, that guy must have said 50 you-knows in a 2-minute interview, and it was worse to watch him McCutcheon interview. And again, I felt bad, but you know, I think something to him because it wasn't really, you know, you want to hear what he's saying, and again, the knows kept coming out. But that's my comment, and you have a great night, Rich.
All right, thanks a lot, Bob, for your call. And you know, I kind of think the Pirates are out of it now. You're right. You're definitely right. They needed to take, you know, 4 out of these last 6 games against 2 division teams, 2 teams that they're chasing, and they ended up losing 4 straight. They won tonight, but even if they win tomorrow, they're still chasing all these teams again. They're 6.5 games back. It's just a lot of ground to catch up, even though they are playing a lot of division games down the stretch against the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. So, you know, if they somehow turn it on, I'm not optimistic, but they would have to win, you know, 20 out of these next 29 games or something like that to even maybe be in the topic or in the conversation. I don't think that's going to happen. Just seeing how this team is made up right now. And as for the interviews, I don't even really know how to respond to that. You know, maybe there's a lot of frustration in that locker room, but, you know, nowadays everyone wants to be politically correct and wants to say the right things. And, you know, I know they're all coached up on what to say from the PR departments, so they're trying to go with their phrases and the coach speak and what the manager says. And, you know, that's why you see them say the same things and repeat themselves, because they basically want to answer it, whatever the question is, they want to answer it a certain way, and you don't really see anyone get into any controversy too much anymore, especially after games. And you know, the one thing with baseball players, they're playing 160 games, even more if you're in the postseason or spring training, and they're meeting with media every day. It's a little bit different because you're playing so many games. It's a little bit different in hockey and the NFL because, the NFL only has 16 games if you count the preseason, a little more. Hockey, not as many games. And, you know, you don't meet with the media, maybe at practice, but there's half the games in hockey. So maybe they're a little bit more outspoken or tell you more. But I think for them, it's just they're frustrated. They're in the bottom of the division. They're struggling right now, and they're getting thrown questions that they just don't want to answer. So that's probably, I didn't get to hear the interview, but I know we'll have Hurdle coming up tonight on KDK TV at 11 o'clock, so hopefully you tune in. All right, let's go out to Dennis in Sharpsburg. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing good.
Thanks for the call.
Okay. I just had a question. I was under the impression that when after a rain delay, after an extensive rain delay, a starting pitcher could not come back out and continue the game. Did that change, or am I mistaken?
No, you're mistaken. Most of the time, managers will shut them down, especially after 2 hours. Very rarely do you see the starter come back. But, you know, the Pirates, you just got to throw them out there at this time. I don't know who you would have put out there. They recalled Neveraskis today, so they used him. But, you know, it was unique. He only pitched, I think if it was pitch count, he only pitched, what, 1.5 innings? Not even. I don't know what his pitch count was, but maybe if he had 50 pitches in him, they would shut him down. I don't know what that breaking point is, but, yeah, usually they down, but he only threw basically 1 inning. And, you know, it was a 2-hour break, so he's okay to come back out. These guys are all young. I mean, basically, back in the day, this wouldn't be an issue. But now, because of Tommy John and, you know, everyone's on a pitch count and the money that's involved, you can only go so many innings most of the time throughout the year. You know, things are so much different, you know, what, 30 years ago, right? Even longer.
Tell me about it. I grew up in the air with Bob Prince and Radio Rich, so
yeah.
I know of what you speak.
All right, I appreciate the call. Thanks. Let's go out
you.
to Ron in Moon Township. How you doing, Ron?
Hey, Rich. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for calling.
Yeah, how are you? Hey, I just have a quick question. What's going on with Gung Ho Jung?
Oh,
like
Young O Gung.
You don't hear about it. Yeah, nobody hears anything no more about him.
Well, basically, he's stuck in Korea. There's a visa issue, what's going on in both countries. So that's where he is. The Pirates don't even know when he's going to come back. I think nothing has really changed in the last month. And you heard the Pirates and Neil Huntington and Frank Coonley talk about they're not even optimistic they're going to have him next year. We talked a little bit about this last night on the sports call, Paul Zeiss and I. And, you know, he's 50-50 on it. You know, this is a government issue now. You know, the United States is holding it up because of the DUIs, and then he still has to do things in Korea. I don't know exactly what they are, but I know the Pirates are working diligently to try to get him over here. They need a third baseman, and he's a third baseman at the right price tag, so that's really why they want him over here. But I don't know. From what you hear from the Pirates and what they're putting out there, it doesn't sound optimistic. I don't think people should be optimistic that he'll be here next year.
Yeah.
Or ever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Rich.
All right. Thanks a lot. Let's go out to Brad in Duncansville. How you doing, Brad?
Good, Rich. How are you, buddy?
Good. Thanks for calling, man.
I have a comment for you.
Okay.
And a Penguin question for you. I'll get my comment in first.
Okay, good.
My prior comment is I want to let you know that I do work for the Curve Stadium, and I did talk to the Curve GM about what's going on over there with the Pirates, and they said something about that Hurdle won't be there next year, that he thinks that Tom Prince will be managing.
Well, that's what a lot of people are speculating. I'm not ready to give up on Clint Hurdle. I don't think it's his fault. I wouldn't be surprised with either way. But you know what? Maybe Clint Hurdle wants to walk away from this situation. Maybe he doesn't want to be in a rebuilding year again. So I don't know if it's the Pirates or Hurdle, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I don't think this is his fault, to be honest with you. I like Hurdle a lot. I think he's a good guy. He's a good motivator. I think he's a good manager. He just doesn't have the players. You need to win.
Okay, and my Penguin question is, what do you think they'll do for centers?
The Penguins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet from Nick who asked the same question. They're going to make a trade at some point or go and get someone. They have about $2 million to play with. I know we're going to talk about this with Jason Mackey coming up tomorrow on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. What will they do? They have some options in-house. You can move Jake Kensel to center. They have Carter Rowney. Then you could play Daniel Sprong. I mean, they got some options right now, but I know they want to go out and find a veteran guy at a price tag around $2 million, what Nick Bonino was. They want to go out and find that kind of guy. Maybe it's a trade. There's not I don't think there's too many free agents that they're going to go out and get. And I doubt you'd see Yager here. And I think if they're going to do something, they'll pursue a trade later, closer to training camp, maybe closer to the year, or in the first couple of months. They really don't have to do anything until February. This team's going to make the postseason without a third-line center right now. They're going to have to get a third-line center by the time the deadline comes. So I'm not too concerned. If they're in fourth place in the division, they're in striking distance. They're going to make the postseason. It's still, I think, they're the best team in the NHL, even without a third-line center right now. All right, we're going to take a break. More of your phone calls, some of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.